Okay, hello. This is a video to, I don't know, just show off the features of Unity Assets, which is a repository that is just has a bunch of tools that that are part of the game, and just, I don't know, just a bunch of stuff. Anyway, so I'm just kind of going down the list on the README. So the first one, every script. Yeah, all right, that's normal. You can have the scripts are here. Wow, there's a lot of them. They have gizmos if you like go and, I don't know, make a game object and add a sphere shape. It will have gizmos. Wow, it's green. Wow, gizmos. Okay, those are nice. Nomai Ruins. Yes, this is the big one. Okay, so well, you can see it here. It's pretty clear, pretty obvious. It's the ruins. Every little piece. There's tons and tons of them. They're all here. We got gravity crystals. We got tractor beams. We got all of it. The gravity crystal. I guess I can show this. I'll show off some of the more important ones. Here's your lights. You can turn off and on gizmos. That's cool. Let's see. Let's look at the gravity crystal first. Wow. Okay. So you have a little guy, little man, and it has a radius, and you can change the radius, and you can change the field direction. And you can see in the gizmo, it has the direction. It says it points downward, and you can change the direction, and you can change the magnitude. And then for the tractor beam, you can place this down, move it. So there's a lot of gizmos for this guy. If I go into the volume, I can change the radius and the height if I move it up and down. And I think you cannot make it negative. That's probably good. And then the speed, if you flip the speed, it will flip the wibbliness. Like it gets wibbly up here. I don't know how to say that. Inward speed and outward speed is just when it pushes you out. These little spheres here are the exit length and exit offset. So that's like when you go up, it will push you out. And that is where that is. So yeah, most of that is just go to the beam volume and just edit it, and it will edit the particle system and edit everything else, and it'll just work. And then if you want to change where this is, you select this little props thing, and you can move it around separately. Don't try moving this beam volume around, because if you do, it will put it back. Yeah, it just puts it back. So don't try scaling or doing this. If you want to move the stuff, you want to move this guy, and you want to move it around, and you can duplicate it, and that's a Control-D to duplicate, and then move it around and all that stuff. So the YAML shaders, so you'll notice the game looks actually good. It looks like base game. We have our bloom. This is the post-processing. If you turn it on and off, it'll change that. You can see it's bloomy. There's like, it's kind of hard to see here. If I turn off lighting, you can see there's ambient occlusion. This directional light is copied from base game. It has the same like shadow properties and color and stuff. With directional lights, they're very silly, and they act kind of like a point light as well as a directional light. So point light is like, it's a point. If I make, by the way, local global, change the axis, pivot center, that changes. This is just general Unity knowledge. It changes. If you have it pivot, it will be where the actual transform is. If you have it center, it will be wherever the geometry is. I like to keep it pivot local just because I'm a little goober, I guess. Anyway, so if I take this light, move it down here, that's if you press F, it will focus on it. That's handy. If I change this, you'll see the light goes wacko as if it's a point light, but all the shadows will act as if the light's still up there. So that's kind of goofy. And to do that good, I changed it to a point light, bumped up the range because it uses the range, and then changed it back to a directional light, and that will make it act good and do proper shadowing and stuff. It's very silly. So that's just worth including, I guess, if you ever do directional lights, which you probably won't do directional lights because you just want the sun to be your directional light. And that's kind of it. But yeah, it's good to know. This is powered by, let's see if I go to graphics. Nobody cares about this, but I'm showing it anyway. This little deferred shader here is what they use. That's what the game uses. We ripped that from the game. This was also given to me by Logan. It's just their funny fog stuff. You won't actually have to use that. I just included it here because archiving purposes. So next feature is BRDF. This is one of my favorite effects. It is, come on, can I get a sphere? Create an empty sphere. Bring it over here. Move it up by BRDF. So this is what they use for all the funny things. They use it for glass and ice and all this stuff. Here's the stranger glass. Here's egg, my favorite. I love egg. And that is edited via this thing, which I made a little editor tool from. This is also this is their editor tool. I just recreated it. It has the specular color, which is this little color here, and that. So if I change this to like more red, and then I hit reload, it will make it red. Wow. If I undo that and reload it again, so that changes that. And then this guy is obviously what the image is. And I think like one of the axes is like angle from the surface to the camera, and one of them is angle from the light to the camera. So whatever, like the direct, this light is that little guy there, and this big guy is the directional light up there. And you can kind of see how like there's this little part here, and it associates with that, and then this red down here is that red. So you can kind of see how it lines up, and you can make pretty cool stuff with that. So that's always fun. Next feature is, oh, that one's not as good. Okay, so sorry, Shu made these models. They are okay. They have, I guess, okay. No, the models are okay. It's just the normals are kind of wacky. So if you want an owl man, little guy, little man, here he is. Here's the Nomai. Wow. So yeah, you have to texture it yourself because it's a funny moment. Okay, next feature. Wow, it's this guy. Just delete that. This guy, player reference. This guy, you will pretty much want this guy in every scene because it is what does the post-processing. It has the camera on it that has, this is copied from the game. All the settings are, all the, like where's the layer mask? Here it is. All that, and all this, and like the fog and stuff. If you want fog, you can place fog. And the post-processing is there. So you want this guy pretty much everywhere. So you can actually have post-processing, which is used for plenty of stuff, like the bloom and the ambient occlusion, and also the occlusion volumes in the DLC and in their houses. It becomes darker, and that's done with post-processing as well. So if you turn that off, it will not become dark. That's a goofy thing. Next thing. So now I am in my game rip that I have, which you can also make with Unity assets. There's a guide. Read the guide. I don't even have to make a tutorial for that. Just read the guide and do it, and you'll have it. You go to Tools, Load All String Bundles, then it should load the stuff. It should load more geometry because a lot of stuff in this game is streamed, which means it's not actually in the scene hierarchy. It's loaded dynamically. So if I go to Timber Hearth, I can show you the ambient light. There's our ambient light. If I turn on gizmos, you'll see there is extra settings. If you plug in a cube map here, which is like this guy, and then change it to a point light, then it will turn it into an ambient light, which has this outer radius and an inner radius. And you'll see if I change it, it like changes the blueness. And then you can make it shell or not. Basically, when it's shell, it will, if it's not shell, it will be full strength at this point and no ambient here, so it will fade in. If it's shell, it will fade in here to the midpoint and then fade back out. So wherever you move this, you can see it makes it less blue if I move it out. The intensity, that's still kind of normal intensity. And then fall off is like how fast it will like fade out. So that's ambient light. Super helpful handles. This is like, ambient light's great. I love it. You'll love it too. It's a nice feature. Okay. I'm just going to actually stay in the rip again to show you the rest of the features because it's nice. If I go turn on this mesh collider, that will be good for later. First, there's this little guy, which is also copied from their stream. It detects what sector a thing is in. So if you have like groups, so if I go to control by proxy base, there's a sector called group, and that will be controlled by this proxy, which is like another thing. But the point is, if you have collision group, you can say, oh, it's belonging to sector this. So when you're not in this sector, which is just like an area, if you're not in that area, then it will turn off. So that kind of just tells you where everything is. So you know what groups are part of, what sections are part of what groups, which is very helpful if you're like trying to optimize and you only want some things loaded at once. Usually you don't have to worry about it, but it's helpful and it's there. There's this visual thing. Oh yeah, for BRDFs, the reload button is the same as the other one in the menu. They just do the same thing. And then edit scene view is just kind of a hack button. Sometimes if you turn off this, it won't look right. You press this button, it will fix it. And also, these little two buttons are added. These show you vertex colors, which is basically just like in the model, there's color, and then this shows you red, green, blue, and alpha for all of them, which they use for like blending in the grass and doing colors and all that. You can actually see there's some dirt there, and if I change it to that, you can see here's where the dirt is. There's more dirt up there, more dirt over there. So that's very helpful to see in base game models because they use that all over the place. In the shader, you can see, not in this one, but in a lot of shaders, there's like a checkbox that's like use vertex color for, as color as opposed to for, blending or for occlusion or something else. So they use that all the time. I think I reviewed, if you click that button, load streaming, that works because some of these guys have streaming handles, and basically that will point to an asset bundle and it will go load from this file. So if you have that bundle in your own thing, it should actually work in game because the bundles will be in game. So it will actually, you can have this handle in your own bundles that are then exported to the game in your mod, and then it will load the streaming thing. If you're using New Horizons, it handles the streaming stuff for you. Stick in a line. This is the big guy. So they work on spheres, and Unity does not do sphere good. So this tool is to do sphere good. If I create a capsule. Wow, there's a capsule. And I want to place it on this planet. There's a toggle for sticking and for aligning. Align just means like rotating, and stick means positioning. So if I turn on gizmos, you have to have gizmos on, and you have to be selecting on this window. You have to like click on it. Not the mesh, but in this window. If I hold S, it will do a little gizmo. And if I go and hold it and then move it around, you'll see it placed it on top of here. And if I hold A, well, this won't do the right volume. But if I change this to radius and like pick timber hearth, then I hold A, then it will align it to the center. And that's really nice for like if you have a tree. Well, these are all batch, so that's not helpful. But if you have a object, I'll just make a fake tree. Wow, look at this beautiful tree we have. If you rotate it, it will rotate along the surface of the planet. Wow, incredibly helpful. It also won't be this laggy. It's only this laggy because I'm in like a full entire, like the whole solar system is here. You just can't see it. So there's different modes. And so if you click them, it will toggle between them. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory. Surface means it will align to the like normals of the surface. So if I like put it up against like something, this won't really work, but it will align to where, like if I see how this slopes up, it will slope around it like that. And then radius will make it stick. It's not very good. I don't use radius very often, but if you change this radius and you set the reference to something, it will basically say, okay, there's a sphere around that reference of radius, whatever, and it will try to stick it to that imaginary sphere, but it doesn't work very well, and it's not used often, so it's fine. Then for align, there's surface, which obviously normal. There's radius, which is just, face towards the center of whatever reference is. And then there's gravity, which is if you set your reference to, like if I go pick and I set it to U, then you'll see it will search, basically it will search up the parent and then down all the children of that parent. And if it doesn't find anything there, it will search up a parent again and then all the children of that. And you can see here, this little field here is what the current gravity field is. And if there isn't a field, like if I said pick, and I set it to something like the capsule, I don't know why I called it a capsule. It will like, okay, well, that set this to 0G because it's kind of a, it's not the best tool, but it works. If I set it to like flashback camera and it will say no force volume, it will go, hey, you have it as gravity, but we need a force volume for their gravity. And similarly, if I set it to like radius and clear the radius, it will be like, hey, we need a reference for it to like what sphere, what thing. And so it kind of tells you what you want. So if I go back to gravity and then pick timber hearth, and then it says, okay, we're at gravity volume now, then I can align it, not radius, surface. And oh yeah, S and A toggle stick and align. So that's kind of like nice. And you have to be selecting this window again for it to work like most things. If I do S and A, then it will align to the gravity volume of timber hearth, which is really nice. Most of the time, if you just have a spherical planet and you don't want to put gravity, like a sphere to gravity volume on it, because like NH generates its own gravity volume, so you don't want to put one, just set it to radius, pick the reference as the center of your planet, and it will work the same because, spherical gravity versus facing towards the center of the planet, that's the same thing. So often you can just use that and it will work. But if you have like a gravity, like a directional gravity, if you have a gravity crystal, say, then, and you want it to align to that specifically, or like the inside of like a building that you have a directional volume because you want it to be straight, you want it to face straight in this one direction, then you can set the reference to that gravity volume. It'll be like, okay, I will do that gravity instead of the planet gravity, which is helpful sometimes. So that is, yeah, that's pretty much the entire tool. Oh yeah, and if you want to change the axis, so currently it is positive y, which as you can see here is that, if I change it to local, it is that green arrow. That's your x, positive x, that's your positive z. If you want it to be negative y instead, this isn't a great example because it's the same on both sides, but it will flip it around. It will make it so it will face inward instead of facing outward. And say if you have like something that's like, oh, your forward wants to be x, then you can do that and now it will face x. So that's helpful if you want to change that. So yeah, that's pretty much the entirety of this tool. You can double click on this and it will select it. For this thing, you can either pick by clicking that button and then select something and it will change it. You can do this, which I barely ever do, or you can just drag it in like that and that'll work. Cool. The 3D fog texture generator and shader code. We already saw the shader code. That was the CG ink, whatever thing I showed before that you don't really need to care about. But the generator is, so I want to make fog. Let us create empty. And then I want a planetary fog controller. You probably won't do this often because NH can make its own fog, but it's good to know and it's a nice tool. So let's see, we want it, sure, radius 300, can make it a little smaller. And then the red is the fog, the fall off, which is basically it just fades out when you go away. That doesn't really matter. If you want to generate this lookup texture, this is basically, they do some goofy thing and then they have a tool in Win Tools Assets. This is from Logan. Logan made this tool and they just sent it to me like on a whim. I'm like, cool, free tool. If you can change this curve, you can add like points or just do it straight. I will add a couple points just for demonstration. If I do that, and then I say, okay, yeah, I want it this dimension, and then you generate it, it will bake it. And then you say, put it in, sure, fog lookup.asset. Why not? Perfect. It should show up here. It looks complete like bullshit, like you have no idea what that is. But if you put it in here, you will have fog. Okay. So what it turns out you need to do is you need to open the scene again, and then it will show up properly. So now you can see there's fog. And if I recreated the game object because I thought I did something wrong. If I do that, then you should see, oh, it's perfect. You can see that I changed, so I made the curve kind of go up and then down and then up. And you can see this ring here where it goes, the density's high and then it goes low and then it goes high. So that is that. And then you can see there's like perfect little fog here. And then as I fade out, it will fade itself out because that's how it works. If I make it bigger, then it's bigger. And if I change the density, I can make it be more thick and it will fade out faster. And I can change the exponent and that will change fall off stuff. So that is fog. Wow, now you know how to do fog. And you can change this texture and that will change the density and make it good. Perfect. That is exactly what I wanted. Awesome. Cool. So I think this, the prefab editing environment. So when you go into a prefab, if I delete this, when you go into a prefab, the lighting and all that, well, so if I go to an example ruins, you'll see there's that directional light. That comes from this, the prefab editing environment. So if you want to edit the sun in here, like move it farther back maybe, which is a pretty common use case, then do it here. If you put like an object in here, it will show up in all prefabs. It won't be like in built prefabs, like in your game. It won't be in the game, but it will be when you're editing it, which is helpful sometimes. You'll notice so here, there is no player reference. If I look in here, you'll see there's no bloom. So that is one thing, is you want to be in a scene that has a player reference. You can either put a player reference here, or you can just stay in this scene and while you're editing all your prefabs, because it will use the post-processing from whatever scene you're in that has a player reference. It will just use that one for post-processing. That is not something I can change, unfortunately. If you want to build your bundles, super easy. You have this tool here. You go to configure, you right-click, add new bundle, name it whatever you want, drag stuff in. It will tell you all the automatically included stuff. You can drag these out, put them in a different bundle. You can remove them. It will track dependencies. It will track everything. You just drag and drop. And then when you're done, you just go to build, set your build folder to wherever you want it to go. And then you don't have to change these options most of the time. And you click build and it will build it. It's easy as that. It's super easy. It's awesome. It's way easier than using this because you can actually see what bundles you have instead of being like, well, I hope I know, like I have this one, but which one is it on? I don't know. With this, you can see it and you can drag and drop. It's the best. Please use it. It's awesome. Okay, that is all. Thank you for listening to my ramblings. I hope it is good enough. I will add more when needed. Okay, bye-bye.